Okay, we just welcome you to the GenMin Camp Directors webinar. This is December 17th, and we're going to be talking about risk management. We're calling this one Risk Management 101, and Mark is going to now open us with prayer, and then we'll get started with an overview of what we're going to cover tonight. So, Mark, will you open us in prayer?
Yes. Father, Son, Spirit, thank you for who you are, your grace, your love, your provision, your providence. And as we enter into this time of talking about risk management, we know that with you there is no risk. You are perfect, you are pure. So in all things, may we tap into that and look to you for guidance and strength, especially tonight as we gather together to talk about some very important matters. We love camp. We know you do too. And in this world, there are so many risks, so many dangers, and things that would want to stop us from having our summer camps and our mission trips. But we know that you are overall. So we look to you and we thank you and ask that you open our hearts and minds. We pray for that and we thank you for all those who are here tonight and those who will listen later. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Amen. Okay, so I just want to welcome you again to our GenMin Camp Directors webinar. This is our fourth one, and we're calling this one Risk Management 101. And there is so much to cover under this topic, but we're going to just get started with some of the basics tonight, and this will be an ongoing conversation. We'll make a 102 and a 103 as necessary. Oh, let me go over the schedule. So we have already done the opening prayer, and Mark's going to give a little introduction to the topic. And then we're going to watch a 10-minute video called Safe Touch and Safe Talk. And then we're going to talk about proper discipline, proper boundaries, mandated reporting, incident reports, and we'll have a time for questions and answers as well. So Mark, you want to go ahead and take it away?
I sure will. Risk management. It is a huge topic. And in every facet and in every level of our camps, there is risk. As a matter of fact, the Home Office has said that the summer camps are GCI's, Grace Community International's, greatest liability because of all the risk involved. And it makes sense and it's obvious. At our worship gatherings, at our worship services, we don't have kids dressing up in camo in the dark of night playing capture the flag in the woods, which is a great risk. So as you know, in some of those amazing activities, there is risk. And risk management is basically the identification, analysis, assessment, control, and avoidance or minimization of risks. Risk management measures incidents and accidents and their impacts on the camp business. And the people who are looking at risk ask who, what, where, how, why, when, and how often. And that may seem like a lot, but when you talk about risk management, it's more than just looking at the surface of how camp is going. It's really digging deep into all of the different things that occur at a camp. That's the science of risk management, but there's also the art of risk management. And that's about flexibility, creativity, and constant improvement. So when we talk about risk management, there's some of the obvious things when you talk about emergency protocol, when you talk about situations that put people on high alert. But then there's also the risk management where just about anybody can be walking around camp and look at a situation or a circumstance and ask, wait a second, I'm just not comfortable with the way we're handling that, or something looks amiss. And perhaps you found yourself in a situation that you felt unfamiliar with or a little uncomfortable with, but after a quick assessment, you had confidence to make what you felt was a correct decision. And you might ask yourself, have you ever been in that experience? And I know I have, and I bet most of you have, where you've come upon something and wait a second, something's going on here that could put us at risk, or put the campers at risk, or put the staff at risk. And some might say you're experiencing your intuition and your instinct at work. And intuition is a keen and a quick insight, a option, taught, non inferential knowledge. But instinct, on the other hand, is a natural or innate impulse, an inclination or a tendency that just kind of comes up. And so I just want you, as we go through all of our topics tonight, thinking of a time at camp when your intuition and your instinct were sounding an alarm. And if it did you listen? Did you listen to the risk that could be in front of you? And this is one of those topics where I know personally I kind of like rather brush aside, because we'd rather get to the fun, we'd rather get to the spiritual, we'd rather get to the great transformational and other parts of camp that are so amazing. But there's the real, the reality, the legal part of camp as well. And that's and as camp leaders, we've always got to be having our eye out to where is the risk and how can we mitigate it. At that, Anne's going to just take it off and show a couple more points about what risk management is, the different levels of it, and then get into some real practical ways that we can improve our risk management.
All right, thank you, Mark. That's a great introduction. Just to reiterate what Mark said, camps are high risk. I think you all know that, but they're so worth it. And I think you all know that as well. And I could have put up a bunch of faces of the kids that we minister to, because the activities are they're just a tool to do life with these kids and to have an entrance point into their journey and to have breakthroughs. And so things like this, the blob, has high risk, but it's also so worth it. And camp is so worth it. So we're not going to stop doing camp. So we have to manage the risk. We all have to manage the risk. We all have to. That's everybody. Even the campers at some level have to be managing risk while they're at camp. And that has a lot to do with the way that the staff train up their campers, and the expectations and the rules and the boundaries that are set forth even before they arrive. So that's what we're going to be talking about tonight. The Virginia 4-H Camping put out a slideshow that I was looking at, and they said everyone at camp is responsible for risk management. So you might think, oh, I'm just the dining hall monitor, I don't need to worry about risk management. Yep, you sure do. Every single person at camp is responsible, especially the staff. So we're just going to quickly go through 4 ways we can manage risk at camp. The first way is to avoid it. That's not doing camp. And we've already addressed that that's really not an option for us right now. We love camp. That's why we're doing it. We love mission trips. That's why we do them. And there's a lot of risk, but avoiding it, that's not an option. So another option is to transfer risk. And that's purchasing insurance, which we do. And we have a good insurance company, and we're in good standing with them. And we're so grateful that we've never had anything major happen where they've threatened to cut off our camps or even our churches. So that's something that we strive for. And that's why we do these trainings, because we want to make sure that we can keep a good insurance coverage. It's not cheap. Insuring camps is not cheap, but I'm so grateful that our denomination values camp ministry and is willing to insure us camps and the mission trips as well. And of course, the mission trips have a whole nother conversation to have about overseas insurance and that kind of thing that they will talk about. But today we're going to be talking mainly about camp. A third option or way to manage risk is to reduce it. And that's to create and follow policies for safety and security. And the fourth is to retain it. That means you accept the cost of any injury, damage, or loss. So today, we're mainly going to be talking about reduce. That's the big one. That's our part as camp directors and camp staff and leaders, is to reduce the risk, because it is worth it. So you all are probably familiar with this. Chapter 4 of the GenMin Health and Safety Policies. I'm sure you all have read this many times with your staff, gone over it. You probably can recite some of it, or at least tell me what's in it. And I know you're all familiar with this, the Appendix 7. This is required of every staff member every year or every event to sign this and date it, and then you have to keep those on file for at least 7 years. You can scan them in and keep them in an electronic file, or you can keep hard copies, but you need to know where those are, and you need to have one for every single person, including you. Another way that we reduce risk is to have staff training, and that's kind of what we're doing right now. We're doing director training, and that passes on down to your staff training. And that staff training can happen on email before you get there. You can send video links out, articles that you require them to read. But of course, most of us do the bulk of our staff training in person, either at staff retreats ahead of time or on the ground the day before the campers arrive. So we're going to do a little training tonight. But we're going to watch a video called Safe Touch and Safe Talk. It's a 10-minute video. It's excellent, excellent. And I sent you all a PDF handout that goes along with it that's pretty detailed, that I encourage you to print out and look over and use. So let me try one more time. Here we go. I'm going to try one more time to add it to my meeting.
Essentials. Online learning for youth development professionals.
Safe Touch and Safe Talk. Protecting your campers and yourself.
Every family has different traditions of affection and touch. You can see some of that variety when parents interact with their children. One important tradition at any high-quality camp is to help children feel physically and emotionally safe. To do that, we need to be explicit about what constitutes safe touch and safe talk. Each youth program has slightly different guidelines, but here are the essentials of what's permitted and what's forbidden.
First, never use foul language or abusive discipline with a camper.
What's the matter with you?
No matter how mad you are, it's never okay to hit or poke a camper with any part of your body or with any object.
Your reaction to that kind of extreme example was probably, "Oh, I'd never yell at a child like that." But have you thought about subtler examples? Virtually anything you say can have an effect on the impressionable young people with whom you work. I urge you to avoid any kind of sarcastic or spiteful remark like these.
Whoa, Derek, where are you going? I thought I told you to get changed. That shirt is disgusting. It looks like you just got that out of the dumpster. Are you kidding me? Oh, dude, it smells like the LT. Are you kidding? Get out of here. You gotta put something else on.
What are you, illiterate? Don't you see the 2 L's on your PFD? L stands for large. You're the smallest kid here. Take this off and put one on that fits right, all right?
Can I please get down? It's really scary.
No! You are being such a wimp right now.
It's so far down.
Everyone has done it. You're being a wimp. This is totally unacceptable.
As a general rule, I urge you to share sarcasm and adult humor only with other adults when you're both off-duty and away from children. Second, you may never share a bed or sleeping bag with a participant in your program, even if someone forgets a sleeping bag on a trip.
That's right, man. Climb on it with me.
Sharing one is not permitted. Your intention may be friendly, but could easily be misunderstood by a child or parent.
Third, never touch a camper in a place that is normally covered by a bathing suit, unless for clear medical necessity, such as applying pressure to stop severe bleeding. Treat your campers' bodies with respect. Things like patting a camper on the behind, pinching, punching, and the like, even if done playfully, are not permitted. In your own example with other staff, you should set a healthy physical example for campers to follow. Even if it's just fooling around, you should refrain from anything that looks like physical aggression or inappropriate intimate behavior. Tossing stones, playing the flinch game, pantsing, and giving noogies are poor examples to set for your campers. You can bet they'll imitate your horseplay, which leads to even more problems. Fourth, keep conversations with campers on appropriate topics. Steer conversations away from sexual or personal topics. And if a camper asks you a personal or sexual question, such as, "Are you a virgin?" or "Have you ever smoked pot?" simply say, "I understand your curiosity, but my personal life is private. Let's talk about something else."
Fifth, use digital devices such as cameras only in approved ways. Never use a digital device where there is an expectation of privacy, such as in a cabin or bunk, toilet, shower, or changing room. And if you ever catch a young person taking pictures where they shouldn't, confiscate the device and hand it over to your supervisor, who can handle things from there.
Whoa, Silas. You just come out of the bathroom with that camera? What were you doing with the camera in the bathroom?
Taking pictures.
Silas, you don't need to take pictures of people in the bathroom, all right? That's not okay. I'm going to take that away from you, okay?
So what kind of touch is permitted at a camp, school, or other youth program?
First, if you'd like to get a camper's attention, it's fine to put your hand on her upper arm or shoulder. As a sign of approval, it's also fine to put your hand on a camper's head or upper back. Handshakes and high fives are fine greetings, as are brief hugs, especially if they're initiated by campers. Remember, it's not just where you touch a camper, but how you touch her that determines whether it's appropriate. For example, a long hug with a camper may start to feel strange. If you ever need to touch a camper somewhere besides the upper back or upper arm, there's a simple 3-step process you should use to make campers feel comfortable. First, explain what you'd like to do, then demonstrate on yourself, and then ask the camper's permission.
Would that be okay? Yeah, it's fine. All right, great. So you can just lie on your back, and I'll help support you. Get one hand on your back, and another on your leg.
Here's another example.
Fasten the carabiner to your harness. First, I'm going to take it and put it in this purple loop here. And then I'm just going to tighten this and make sure everything's fastened onto you properly. Is that alright if I do that now?
Yeah, okay.
Using this process of explaining, demonstrating, and asking permission helps protect you by clarifying your intentions. Here are 3 other ways you can protect yourself from being misunderstood. First, use double coverage whenever required, including on sleep outs and during changing times and showering times. Double coverage is sometimes called too deep leadership, or the rule of 3. The point is to have more than one adult on duty. Use your voice to make your presence known, and keep an ear out for silly behavior that might get out of control. It's worth noting that most inappropriate intimate behavior that happens at camps, schools, and other youth programs occurs among young people, not between kids and staff. A second important protection is to have all of your one-on-one discussions with young people in public spaces. It's fine if you want some privacy to sit yourself away from the crowd, but never take a young person to a secluded location for a private discussion or for any other reason. A third important protection is to tag out with another leader. Be aware of how your temper is affecting your own behavior. When staff are tired, frustrated, or stressed, they may say or do things with young people they later regret.
Tom, would you come and help me with this knot?
So besides using your time off wisely, it's important to remember that you can always ask another staff member to step in if you feel your temper boiling over, or if a young person is making you unbearably frustrated. These guidelines and protections will ensure that young people are physically and emotionally safe. But what if one of your campers or students has been mistreated before arriving at your program?
As a youth development professional, you are obligated to tell your camp's director if you suspect that a child at your camp has been abused or neglected. Tell your camp director if a child acts out sexually, has unexplained burns or bruises, or tells you that he or she has been mistreated in some way. Your camp director has the training to handle things from there. Campers will develop close, trusting relationships with their peers and with their counselors, and may want to disclose some kind of mistreatment. Remember that as a mandated reporter, you can't keep information about abuse or neglect a secret. If a camper asks you, "Can you keep a secret?" the best reply is, "I can keep our conversation private unless I have a concern about your safety or the safety of someone else. If I have a safety concern, I may have to share what you tell me with a few other people in order to help keep you safe."
Listen carefully for the basics of what, where, when, and with whom something happened, but don't ask any leading questions. Immediately share any suspicion you have of physical, sexual, or emotional abuse with the director of your camp, school, or youth program.
Finally, your camp probably has a form called something like a behavioral incident report that you'll need to complete if there's any severely aggressive or inappropriately intimate behavior between campers. Having a record of the camper's behavior and your response gives the camp director key information should he or she need to discuss the incident with a parent. Be sure you understand your camp's procedures for documentation of behavioral incidents.
That wraps up this Leadership Essential. Thanks for watching and have a great summer.
For quizzes, handouts, and other resources, explore more on ExpertOnlineTraining.com.
All right, so let's go back to my PowerPoint. So they brought up a lot of good points, and I just wanted to mention about Expert Online Training. If you don't know about them, our previous webinar that was done in November, we talked about them and the pricing and how to use them to train your staff ahead of time, and how you can go online and they have to take quizzes and watch certain videos. And they've got different packages now that I've noticed. They've added a package for a lower number of videos, like a number of access to videos, which is nice, because if you're a smaller camp and you're only running once a year, it's quite a hefty chunk of change to use them. But once again, I've looked at a lot of different training videos, and this is the best out there. They have nearly 100 training videos for the camp ministry or camp professionals. They call them youth development professionals. And on this particular topic, they have one whole section called, I think it's called safety, physical and mental safety or something. And there are 22 videos. So the one you just watched called Safe Touch, Safe Talk. And then there are 21 other on all kinds of topics. In fact, let me just show you. Active lifeguarding, alcohol beverage laws. And you have to remember, they're doing this for camps that run all summer, and they hire people to work for 3 months at a time. So they'll have topics that apply to them. Anaphylactic emergencies, child welfare protection. And you can see one of the ones I gave you access to look at these videos, and between now and December 31st, just check your email for the password and the link. But I would highly recommend on this topic, number 7 and 8, duty of care, part 1 and 2. And they cover the whole idea of parentis, locus and parentis, or it's the idea that we have duty of care. We take over guardianship of these kids and what our liability is. So there's one on sexual harassment and a couple other ones on there that are really excellent. So great resource. So let's talk about the very first topic that they covered in the video, which is proper discipline. And thankfully, we do have a great support through GCI and a manual that we can refer to. We have people we can call and ask questions of, which is really awesome. One of the things that is covered a little bit in the manual is how to handle discipline, but it's not real thorough. And I can understand why, because a lot of things are contextual. But let's talk about some of the things that is covered. The Expert Online Training handout says, this is kind of the one I sent you on email, and it's kind of a summary of what they said, that discipline, especially one-on-one conversations, should be done in view of other staff. Never use abusive or derogatory language with campers. Never hit, poke, or shake a child, or use any kind of physical discipline. Never haze campers or use abusive or humiliating initiation rites. And abide by the rule of 3 or the double coverage. And we've talked about that. If you've been around GenMin camps for any duration of time, we call it 2-man deep or never alone policy. And hopefully you know that, you're abiding by it, and you're training everybody to abide by that as well. It gets tricky, I'll just say, 2-man deep, rule of 3, when you're talking about in the middle of the night and a kid has to go to the bathroom and walk to a bathhouse, and now you've got one adult alone with a kid and one adult alone in a cabin. And we can talk about that when we're discussing this, but you have to think through all of those situations on never alone with 1 or 100 kids. We should never have an adult alone in a non-public view place. So I'm glad they covered that. The other thing that we do at SCP SoCal is we have a 4-strike policy, and I know other camps have different ways of wording these things. I remember clearly P. Rice saying, one of the first times I heard him speak about his camp, that if they had a 4-strike policy, everybody would go home by the end of the first day. So maybe this isn't something that works in your context. I love what he does instead. He has something called a Keras room, I believe. Now, I've never been to his camp. I would love to go one day. But, he just takes the 2 kids that are having problems and puts them in a room and until they can pray for each other, which I think is awesome. So whatever it is that you use, there needs to be a clear path so that everybody knows what the next step is. I think that's the important thing here. So at SoCal, I was using this as an example. We make it clear, and we train our counselors what a strike 1 is, what a strike 2 is. And of course, strike 4 is when the parents are called to come pick up their kid. And so that the kids know, and the parents read this in the rules. The kids sign a standard of conduct before they even arrive. It's an agreement. I'm going to abide by these, and here's the 4 strikes. So the parents are notified well ahead of time that if we get to strike 4, which we call them on strike 3, and we let them know that strike 4 could be coming, just to put them on alert. And I can send you a copy of this if you would like, so that you can see how we word it. And strikes in our context are related to, but not limited to, attitude, defiance, and rebellion. It's not like a careless mistake. We had a kid, accidentally fall and break into a window and break a window. That's not a strike. A strike is a defiant attitude that just can't be worked with. And so we have a process that we take them through, and we have a reporting structure. And so it's really important when you're talking about risk management to make sure that everybody's aware of this, from parents to campers, counselors, even the dining hall monitor, the nurses. Everybody needs to know about this, and they need to know what it looks like. And then, as you see on the bottom of this page, you need to report it. If you give a camper, in our case, we say once a camper has 3 strikes, a camp incident report needs to be filled out. And that is an account of the details of what got them to that point. And we're going to go through incident reports at the end of this, and also in the next one, Risk Management 102. So at this point, are there any comments or questions on the video or on the discipline? Maybe you want to give an example of how you handle discipline at your camp, and how you're consistent about it, and how you're minimizing risk. So what you need to do if you have a comment is just to unmute your microphone and start talking, or you can raise your flag, which you do by clicking on the 3 dots on the right-hand side. So I'll pause for just a moment and see if anybody wants to say anything. Jeff, Jeff Broadnax, do you have anything you wanted to add to any of that regarding discipline, or any comments on the video that you think? Jeff is one of our other coaches, and I thought maybe he might have something.
No, I got to tell you, I thought it was a fantastic video. That's what I was saying. I was wondering if we could link even some of these other ones for key staff members. I love the way they approach some things, the way they cover some things. But no, I think it handles it very well.
Excellent. I know it's not everything, and I think that's why there are other videos. And once again, when you start getting into risk management, it covers a lot of things. It covers, I think we're required by law to do what is reasonable what any normal person would do in a situation. If somebody's having a seizure, what's a reasonable thing? And if we do not do what's reasonable, that's when we start to get into trouble. So it's kind of gray in a way, but I guess that's the only way that the law can break it down. You have to do what any reasonable person would do in that situation. And I guess that's what judges make the decisions of when they're in court. But we want to think through this. We've got a lot of great camp minds that can get together and think through situations. And we can also share stories, because that's when it becomes alive, when we start to share stories about how do we handle these situations and what happened to you and how I can learn from that. So if anybody has a story about any of these things that you think of along the way, feel free to raise your flag or unmute your microphone and share it with us.
Hey, Ann, can I add one thing?
Yes, please.
When he was talking about at one point or Mark was talking about, I think even the intuition versus instinct at work and how you assess things. It's not a book that is really dealing with camp stuff, but one of the best books I've ever read on the subject of kind of instinct risk management is called The Gift of Fear. By Gavin DeBecker. He was an FBI profiler. Now it's really about trusting your intuition in safety situations, personal safety situations. But after reading it, it didn't just affect me as far as personal situations. It affects me in every situation as a pastor and other places. I look at everything differently. It's a fantastic book. It's been out probably a decade and a half, but it's a fantastic book. It's called The Gift of Fear.
Excellent.
Just know it's intense though. It's intense, but I think it'll with what we do, it'll heighten your senses enough to just be thinking a lot about different things that you see.
That's great. Any resources that you have, please send them out you can send them to me, and then I'll send them to the bulk emailing list, because once again, many minds put together on these topics are going to protect us all. I did want to make one comment about the video. He said to go to your camp director with the sexual abuse or any kind of mandated reporting issues. And of course, as you all know, if you've been through any of our training, we designate one person at each camp. The camp director says, and usually it's the chaplain. The chaplain is the one trained up, and even the camp directors don't need to hear about the abuse or what the abuse is. They might know there's a situation, but they don't need to know the details. We want to quarantine that to our chaplains. So I just wanted to make that note. And obviously, when you see the videos, you have to personalize them. I did like what he said when he was rephrasing, when the kid asks, can you keep a secret? I loved his phraseology, and I wanted to write it down and make sure that went into our training manual. But he said, I can keep our conversation private unless it concerns your safety. And I really like the way he said that, because we can't promise to keep their secret. So, and Jeff had a question in the group chat about, can we share that video with our camp staff? And that is what ExpertOnline Training does. And you are welcome right now to share the video. When this comes out, you can share it with your staff. And as of right now, this video, I can show it through December 31st, and then my license expires. But I'm pretty sure SCP SoCal is going to go ahead and pay for another year license. And if they do, then I will leave all those webinars up and you can access them. So we showed one of the ExpertOnline Training videos during this webinar and 2 in the previous one. And the way ExpertOnline Training works is you pay a fee and you have access to the videos for 12 months, basically from January 1 to December 31st. And then all your videos, there's a coding in there that shuts everything down and you can't access them after that. So, so legally, even though it's being recorded on Fuse, I'm not gonna keep playing it after December 31st, after my license expires, unless I renew it. So, but feel free to send out the links to these webinars if you want to key staff, because these are excellent resources. But I highly recommend you taking a look before the end of the year. Use SCP SoCal's account and go on and watch as many as you can, because it'll probably, when you're done, it'll convince you to go out and fundraise so that you can subscribe next year, because it's just a great way to train your staff before they get to camp. Okay, so we got to move along. We have about 17 minutes left before we hit the top of the hour. We're going to talk about proper boundaries real quick, and that is never alone. We talked about that already a little bit, but you need to have a plan in place on how you handle bathroom visits and showers and dorm time, that you're never alone with a minor in a non-public view space. And that includes a car. Even though cars are considered public view legally, you have a lot of power and control. And so we recommend you not be alone in a car with a minor as well. Physical contact, that's just, we had a staff member punch or smack or a girl really hard. And it's just inappropriate. You just can't do that. Hitting, poking, the physical affection, the words, easy to be sarcastic. Some of us, it's second nature. And we just have to be careful about the sarcasm and the jokes, because sometimes they can be taken wrong. And sharing personal information, that's something else we have to be aware of in having proper boundaries. And the photos is something that I want to add to our list of guidelines for our camps, for our counselors when they're in their dorms, because this can be a greater legal issue if kids are taking pictures of each other in the bathrooms or getting out of the showers and posting them online when they get back home. You know, if they have a little, we don't allow our kids to have phones, so it's not like they can do it while they're at camp, but they certainly could have a digital camera and go home and upload pictures. So we need to probably talk about that a little bit more, because we're in the day of everything goes online. We document our lives online. So there might be some other issues on proper boundaries. Refer to this handout. This is really good. The ExpertOnline Training handout I sent you about the safest and most welcome kinds of touch, short hugs. Let's see what else is there. Beware of overstimulating a child with tickling and wrestling. It's generally wise to keep playful touch and pats to the upper back, high fives, handshakes, hand on the shoulder. And then never touch a person's body on a place that's normally covered by a bathing suit, unless for a clear medical necessity, or you, like that guy using the carabiner, he was very clear to say, you know, this is what I'm going to do. I'm showing you, now can I do it? And I really like that 3-step process. Tell them, show them, and then ask for permission. And I think that was great, because sometimes when you're doing an activity, you have to touch in different areas. And if you just do it respectfully, it won't seem weird. So the next part is how you can protect yourself from a false accusation. So if you need to touch a child, for example, to position a water skier in the water, fasten a safety harness, do what we just talked about. Tell, demonstrate, and ask. And make sure that you've got double coverage, and make sure you never ever share a bed or a sleeping bag or that kind of thing with a camper. And just be careful to supervise things such as pillow fights and things that can end up being dangerous. I know some people are like, oh man, pillow fights. And pillow fights are usually harmless, but you have to always be thinking, what's the worst thing that can happen? And this is the other part of the handout, which I'm just trying to hit the highlights since you already have it in your possession, is what needs to be monitored. And this goes into when they start talking about sexuality, which it's just a hot topic. It's a big topic. We had a lot of those kind of conversations at our camp this year. And we're probably going to have conversations among the camp directors, maybe in person at Converge, and talk about some of these issues so that we can have a dialogue and it's not recorded necessarily, so we can just have a conversation about this, because this is a huge topic. But I would just say err on the side of being private and keeping things contained while you're at camp, because it's just, the environment is, there's just so many variables that we can get into trouble with, and we've got to be careful. So let's see, I'll let you go ahead and look at that on your own. So for SEB SoCal, this is a handout that is in our staff notebook. It's called Guidelines Concerning Sexual and Abuse Matters at SEP SoCal. And we outline no romantic contact between staff and camper, and the never alone. And we outline the mandated reporting steps. And we can send this to you as well. We find that it works really well at the very first staff meeting to talk about how this is a safe place and your business isn't going to be shared throughout camp. But there are a couple things that we can't keep private, and that is if somebody's harming you, if you're going to share that, if you're harming somebody else, or if you're harming yourself. And we don't make a huge deal about it, but we try and say it right up front so that they know. But if one of these things is happening, we want you to get help. So we need to have a private conversation about that. And that's where you tell them to come to you, and then you can go to the chaplain together and let them speak with the chaplain. So if you feel like somebody's starting to go down that road, here's the steps. You can read through these on your own time to gently stop the person and how to take those steps. So make sure you as a director and all your staff know these steps backward and forward, because it'll hit you when you least expect it. So let me go through the next section, and then we'll open it up for questions since we're kind of short on time. Mandated reporting. I just encourage you to know what this means and to check your local laws. Mandated reporters are people who have regular contact with vulnerable people, that can be the elderly or children, and are therefore legally required to ensure that a report is made when abuse is observed or suspected. Specific details vary across jurisdictions. The abuse that's reported may include neglect, financial, physical, sexual, or other types of abuse. It's not just sexual or bruises. It could be neglect, which is a harder one to verify or to even know about. That's Wikipedia's definition, and this is by Medical Dictionary. A professional person required by law to report evidence or suspicion that a child or elderly adult has been abused or neglected. And it lists who those people might be. We are mandated reporters as camp staff, even if we're volunteer and not getting paid. So that's something that all your staff need to know when they come on board, and they need to know what that means, and they need to know the steps that are required at your camp. So ExpertOnline has a section for this you can refer to. The last thing I'll cover, and then we'll open it up for questions, is this incident report form, which Anthony sent to all of you in July. If you don't have a copy of it, we can send it out to you again. And this is what you want to use for all major things that, if you have to send a camper home, or a camper runs away from staff and you can't find them, all these kinds of things need to be reported. And maybe we should put together a list of what kinds of things should be reported like that, because as Matt Morgan has told us, there's a delicate balance. You can report too much and get into trouble, or not report enough and get into trouble. And so it's that fine line. So maybe we could give some more guidelines on the incident reporting when we talk about it at our next webinar on risk management. So are there any comments or questions at this point? We've got about 8 minutes left. We can take some questions. If you have a question, just unmute your microphone and begin speaking. No questions? Okay. So I know a lot of this was review for you. We wanted to get it recorded so that when you have new people coming on board, or you're training up somebody to be a camp director, that you can send them to this webinar and they can listen to it maybe even next year. And we're going to try and cover a lot of topics that we can have this wonderful database. People can go watch them, or you can send them the links. So in April 21st, we're going to do Risk Management 102, which will cover health and safety policies and practices, health screenings. I hope you're all doing health screenings where you have them check blood pressure, temperature, and for head lice. Absolutely critical. You don't want a case of lice going through your whole camp, and it's very contagious. Also, we're going to talk about adding new activities. If you're planning to add a new activity, make sure you run it by the legal department. Cheryl Corson
Hey, and
Yes, sir.
just real quick, I know you said the videos won't be, but the webinars they will still be available after the first of the year.
Yes, Ponch, I'm hoping that SCP SoCal will renew our license and I can just leave the webinars as they are up online with the videos included. If SCP does not renew their license with Expert Online Training, the webinars will still be there. They'll just be minus the Expert Online Training videos. I'll have to cut those out just because I won't have legal rights to show it. But my hope is that SCP SoCal, our advisory council, will allow us to renew our license just because it's such a valuable tool.
Okay, thanks. I just wanted to be sure of that before.
Yeah,
Thank you.
that's my hope. Thanks, Punch. So in April, we're going to talk about meeting your state requirements, which I know the people from New Heights, probably we need to have them as guest speakers on that day because they jump through a lot of hoops for their camp. We're going to talk about the GCI insurance requirements and incident reports and maybe more than that if we have time. So that is in April, but let me just encourage you to log in January, and I put the dates. It's the third Thursday of the month. So the third Thursday in January, I believe it's January 21st, Jeff McSwain is going to be on, and he's going to go through the camp curriculum. We're still massaging the title. The working title is Celebrating the Grip, but we're throwing that out to youth and young adults to find out how that plays out in this generation. So if any of you have any ideas on how we can say that God never lets go of us, that he has a firm grip on us, and even if we let go, he still has us, that's kind of the gist of it. Tune in. Actually, if you have a suggestion on the title, send it to Jeff McSwain ASAP. And tune in January 21st, where Jeff is going to take us through the curriculum. It's going to be excellent. And then in February, Matt and Pam Morgan are going to be talking about camp finances. It's an exciting, exciting topic. You do not want to miss it. No, it's one of the probably one of the things that most camp directors don't want to have to think about, but developing your budget, reporting, that kind of thing, how to deal with donations and camp collections if you collect money at camp to donate somewhere else. So it's going to be a great time for you to ask questions. So make sure that you invite your team members who deal with the finances to join us for that webinar in February. And I believe it's February 17th, if I'm correct. So it's the third Thursday in February. And then, of course, we have Converge coming up in March. Jeff's got Converge out there in Ohio. And then in April 15th, we've got Converge out here in California. And there'll be a lot of great things planned for that as well. So we encourage you to stay tuned. Anybody have any questions or comments or thoughts before we close out? We have a couple minutes left, and we'd love to hear from you before we all break for the holidays. Can you believe Christmas is only a week away? Crazy.
Hey, this is Jeff. I just want to say thanks to all of you guys who came on too. This is it's great seeing everybody here and seeing as many of us on here as possible, and it means a lot. It absolutely means a lot to Mark and Ann and I, and what we're trying to do, and trying to save some time at Converge, so that we can spend time kind of with each other and dealing with some of the other issues rather than some of these. Because if we can cover this stuff like right now, that'd be great. So I see Toby's got his flag raised, so I'll let Toby go ahead.
Hey guys, thanks for the training. It's been good though. Everyone that I've been on so far has been very excellent. So I appreciate that. First of all, my question was a comment I think that Ann, perhaps you or Jeff, one of you made earlier, that each year you have staff initial that they have read the GenMin manual. Did I hear that correctly? And you save those records each year?
It's actually not the whole manual, thank goodness. It's just those 4 pages in chapter 4. And
gotcha.
Yeah, you just every year you can save the handouts and have them read them and turn the handouts back in. You can just double-side it. So it's an acknowledgement form that they sign. So they have to read through that chapter 4 and then sign the appendix 7 acknowledgement form to say that they have actually read it and they understand it and agree to it. So that has to be on file for every event that you do for GenMin.
Okay. Makes
Yeah.
sense.
Okay, great. That's a good question, Toby. Thank you. All right, any other questions or thoughts or? Nope. Okay, so I forgot to get a volunteer to pray. So Jeff, would you mind? Can I volunteer you to pray, close us out in prayer?
You're going to volunteer me? Yes, I'll accept.
Thank you.
All right. Lord in heaven, thank you so much for the blessing of tonight. Thank you for the mission you've given us. Thank you for allowing us to join you in what you're doing in the lives of young people all over the country, in the lives of staff members all over the country, in the lives of their families. Because when we all leave camp, we go back to communities, we go back to churches, we go back to schools, we go back to workplaces. And the things that you've given us at those places just really enhance who we are and enhance the gospel message as we share it through our daily lives. We appreciate that. And yet there's some things about risk that we're able to help, not just at our camp, but even in our workplace. And tonight's message was no different. So I thank you for Mark and Ann and all the work that they put in. It's a lot of work, not just putting the slides together and the PowerPoints together, but also trying to worry about the technology and trying to make sure we can get all the things that need to be covered, and knowing that you'll leave out some stuff, but knowing that we can always come back to it. We thank you that we're all in this together. We thank you for the support that we give each other. We thank you that you have opened our eyes and opened our hearts and minds to be able to share with each other what's needed. Thank you for this network. It is an amazing network of folks, amazing network of friends. It's an amazing network of camps. Thank you for the years of safety that you've given us, the decades of safety that we've not had, but just a couple major incidents over the 50 years of camps. And Lord, we are so grateful for that. We don't take it for granted at all. We thank you for just always being our protector and our guide. And just pray now that as we move from here and go back to our daily lives and go back to the preparations for the celebration of the Advent and the Incarnation and Christmas, we just ask that you'll bless us as we do it and bless us as we go. We love you and we thank you for everything that you do for us, everything you're doing with us, for us, by us, and with us. We thank you for it all in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Amen. All right. Well, I pray you all have a wonderful Christmas celebrating the birth of Jesus with family and with friends in your church communities, and great new year. And I'll get this edited and out as soon as I can, and feel free to share it with whoever you feel needs it. And if there are any topics that you want covered in these trainings, please feel free to email me, and we can do video conferences at other times of the week too. Like I could do one on a Sunday evening or another time and record it, and we could just keep building our database of different topics. So I hope to cover a topic like raising up new leaders, like Big Brother, Big Sister, Crew. That would be great to have a lot of different people share what they do at their camps, raise up staff from campers. So that's a topic I have on the back burner. And then eventually we'd like to do some of these trainings for you to be showing to your staff in your camps. So I think they're going well. We're working on the technology and getting the quality up to par, but overall, I just want to thank you all for being on tonight. So close to the holidays, and we have more people on tonight than we've had the last two. So I appreciate you all joining in, and I wish you all a Merry Christmas.